wait until it turns. Okay, there we go. All right, welcome everyone to Ask Bucky Unfiltered. My name is Janan. I am one of the Special Projects interns at Campus and Visitor Relations. And today I have with me the other Special Projects interns.
Hi everyone, my name's Allie Weber. Like Janan said, I'm the other Special Projects intern at Campus and Visitor Relations, and today we're talking with the Multicultural Student Center, which we're super excited to have you guys on. So before we start the questions that have been coming in, why don't we, just get a chance for you guys to introduce yourself, just so our audience kind of knows who we're talking to.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maria Ahmed. I'm Assistant Director for Leadership and Involvement at the Multicultural Student Center. So I've been at the MSc for 4 years this October. So that's pretty exciting to see at different stages. And in my role, I oversee our internship program, and then a lot of our Welcome Week events, maybe over SOAR, you watched our video. I help put that together. And so we have a lot of fun. And so Christian is one of our newest interns on the team, and so I'll have him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Christian Figueroa. I am a sophomore here at UW. I will be the Latinx Cultural Programming intern at the LCC. I study international studies and economics. I'm Mexican American and Salvadorian American, and also a Chancellor Scholar.
Awesome, that's exciting to hear. Maria, I actually attended the virtual Hassan Minaj event for Wisconsin Welcome, and I saw you kind of leading that discussion there. That must have been so cool. So yeah, some very cool stuff y'all are doing. So yeah, could you all just start off by telling us a little bit more about the Multicultural Student Center?
Yeah, for sure. I think first thing off the bat, as you just heard Christian mention that he is the Latinx Cultural Programming intern. And so within the MSc, we have the BCC, which is the Black Cultural Center, the Latinx Cultural Center, and the APIDA Student Center. And APIDA stands for Asian Pacific Islander Desi American. And I think that's something to start off with, because a lot of times people assume they're different, their own entities, but we actually are in one group. Like all our staff, we all work together as one team. So, and we're all in the red gym right now. So if you haven't been to the red gym because it's been closed or whatever, you probably have seen us from the outside. We are the red castle looking building right next to Memorial Union on Langdon. So right when you walk in, you see the BCC right there on the first floor. Come to the second floor is the MSc, and we have our spaces there. And then you go a little bit further back and up some more stairs, and you have the LCC on one side and the APIDA Student Center on the other side, and those are brand new spaces. Like the furniture is like not even set yet, and so we're really excited to, whenever we can safely open, to have those spaces available for students to be in and study and build community.
That's really great to hear, and I'm excited to be able to, be able to use those spaces, and for students to be able to use those spaces. When did the Student Center, like the Multicultural Student Center, start on campus, and kind of what's the history behind that?
Yeah, for sure. So it's been more than about 30 years that the MSc has been in place, and it's been through a number of different reiterations of location and purpose and all that. And I think we kind of still go through that as it's as politics change, as our landscape changes, who are we serving, how do we serve students, all of that changes. And I think we're always looking for student input of like what is needed, right? Like, is it programs that are needed? Is it what kind of support is needed? And so it's always changing. And even just emphasizing the student voice, like the BCC, and after that, all the different culture centers that came about were through student voice and protest. And so there's been a Black Culture Center on campus before as well. So this is like the third time we've created it. And it ebbs and flows, but we really want to make it sustainable as a college campus, but also getting students involved, making it a place for students. And so I think, Christian, you've been utilizing the space like before being an intern. So I would love to have you share what brought you to the center, and what do you see for you?
Yeah, one of my first experiences with the center was at the Latinx student orientation, and that's when Christian Noriega, who's now my boss, actually pinned the LCC pin on me. So it's kind of funny now how I'm his intern. But I utilized it as a space to get, which we'll like talk about later, but like a space for resources. I went many times during the writing hours there in the MSc space. I used the LCC startup space last year to study with friends, to attend LSU events and other events, especially during finals week. So it's been a really good place for students of multicultural backgrounds to go there to study. I know I've been utilizing it a lot, and that's where I've also gotten to know like many of my friends I have today. So it's been a good way for all of us to come together in a vulnerable space.
Now, I know we mentioned it a little. Sorry, Janan. I was just going to say, I know you mentioned a little bit why someone would want to go to the MSc, but could you maybe go into a little bit more detail on what opportunities or what kind of educational services that the MSc provides?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to pass it out to Christian first with just Latinx Heritage Month that's going on right now, and like how that kind of encompasses all those points you mentioned of education, community, celebration. And yeah, I'll give it out to him first, and then I can delve in more.
Yeah, before I was the LCC intern, I was on the Latinx Heritage Month committee, and during the summer and the end of the school year, we plan for this upcoming Latinx Heritage Month, which fall between September 15th and October 15th. So for us, this is our probably biggest month of the year. Of course, this is the first time we've had to do it virtually, so it's been a bit of a challenge, but it's still fun nonetheless. We have a lot of events educating the greater Madison community on social media and through virtual events on platforms like Instagram Live, Zoom, StreamYard, Facebook Live. Most recently, we had our event called Addressing Anti-Blackness in our community. We realized and recognized that there is a lot of anti-Black sentiment within our community, even though there are a lot of African Americans, and Afro Latinos within our community. And we use these events to educate the greater populace and how to combat and recognize anti-Blackness, how to educate ourselves on our own history and politically, socially, culturally, even within our language. And we use this month and the center as a way to get students in connection with other students of the same background, cultural background, and as a resource to kind of let their words flow. Next week, we'll be having an event called Tu Voz. I'll be there. I'll be guiding the event. It's a place where students will be able to, talk about their feelings and express some of the realities they experience here on campus. And we have UHS there present. Usually the person from UHS identifies as Latinx, and it's a great way for them to connect with resources outside of the center. And a great way for them to get to know each other and kind of realize how similar we all are past our cultural experiences.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that, to kind of go off that too, a lot of things that Christian just mentioned kind of encompasses like what the MSc and the centers are there for, right? So one, campus is huge, and so it can get very overwhelming, or just like, how do I find my circle? How do I feel like I belong and I'm not just a number? And so our hope is like you can come to the MSc to find that community within this larger UW community that you can connect with and rely on, and create these friendships with, and then also learn more about yourself. Maybe there's parts of your identity that you hadn't had a chance to really learn about or explore. And honestly, even for myself, like my parents are from India and I was born here, and I never learned about Indian history of India or South Asia until college, right? Like my high school, it was like world history was just Europe history, right? And so I had a chance to explore that in college, and that's the kind of opportunities we want to provide through our programming of learning about your own culture, but then also being able to celebrate that and share that with others. So a place to learn and celebrate and reflect, but also building community and connecting, and the resources as well, because there's so many things on campus. Like the Writing Center is a great example, who's a great resource out there. But as a freshman, you're like, I get so much information, I don't remember where anything is. And so our hope is to have those services available in our spaces as well as partnerships across campus, so that's easier to find and connect with.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the first time I learned about the Multicultural Student Center, it was actually at my SOAR, so student orientation and advising registration, something like that. And they had a session on like the Multicultural Student Center, like a representative was speaking, and they were talking about all these resources, and that was the first moment where I was just so excited to get on campus. Like obviously I was admitted, I was registering for classes, but then I was like, oh, like look at these resources made for like to help me find my community. So yeah, I really enjoy the opportunities the MSC offers, and it's fun. I'll stop by for, like Christian was talking about, help with the writing center, or yeah, just so many fun things, like the different like cultural events you have going on. It's fun to learn about other cultures while also meeting people from my culture too, which I grew up in a very obviously a Wisconsin town, so it's not necessarily having people that identify like I do. So meeting those people on campus has been like really an exciting experience, and I appreciate the MSC for helping me do that. Awesome. So we kind of talked about, currently you have your Latinx Heritage Month, and obviously us being in the virtual setting. How can people get connected with you all? And yeah, how can we find you all in this virtual world?
Yeah, looking for you guys. Since much of our some of our programming is run by teenagers and young adults, we do have Instagram. We are very active on social media like Twitter and Facebook. And a lot of our, like I mentioned before, some of our events are on Instagram Live, and most of our events, if not all, are hosted by students, or at least led by students, in an effort to have better connection with the Madison community. And if you go to Linktree, it's a good way to get registered for all the and learn more about the upcoming LHM events and other things going on during that time. Additionally, we have educational posts, I believe every Monday for at least LHM, talking about our culture, our past, and possibly the future, and important faculty and staff on campus. And those are good ways to get informed. And we'll have all of our flyers of our core event for LHM, and along with the collaborations we have with other organizations, mainly Latinx or Hispanic identifying across campus. So it's a good way for students to learn about other organizations and their own community across campus, just making our campus a little bit smaller.
Yeah, exactly. So our social media is super active, and we're always trying to get that feedback from students. So we're trying to do new things. If anybody had a chance to attend the meetup, which was our virtual student org fair this year, it was on the first day of classes, so like literally one of the first events of the virtual semester. So we're always looking for feedback. Was it fun? We want to make sure we're connecting with students and making it relevant to the audience, and not just doing events to just do them. And so social media is our place. And then also during this time, so Monday we'll open back up once this temporary closure is lifted. And so we have spaces in our space. We have tables in our space that are reservable for individual study. So similar to a library, we have a system where you can sign up every Sunday for that coming week to have a study spot in the MSC between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. The slots are at an hour and a half, but you can sign up for longer than that too. So it's a nice way to still feel a little bit more connected. We are not a quiet study space, so let's say you and a roommate or like a friend in a different class wanted to study in the same space safely. Our tables are 6 feet apart. There's outlets. You wouldn't necessarily be able to sit at the same table, obviously, but you could still be in a space and like maybe listen to the same music at a moderate level, or even just talk in a normal inside voice. We want to be able to accommodate for that, whereas the library may not. And so that is an opportunity that we're trying to highlight. So that's another way to kind of stay connected with the MSC.
Wow, it sounds like you guys have like so many different opportunities, both virtual and now hopefully with it being lifted a little bit for people to get connected with each other. And when this is posted, just so our audience knows, we'll have the links to your Instagram and also your website, and also where you can schedule all those reservable tables. So if you missed any of that, you can just click in the captions below and we should have it posted there. Yeah, so before we wrap up this discussion, is there anything else you both would like to add or talk about for the MSc?
I would just say a general push, kind of how I mentioned my college experience and being able to find out more about my own identities. Similarly, in colleges where I was able to gain those leadership skills and have the opportunity to develop skills to have this kind of conversation. In high school, I was a super shy person that would never have signed up for something like this, and so it was through being involved in organizations I cared about because they were related to my identity. Is where I gained those opportunities to develop these skills and then take that beyond after. Obviously, I'm not in college anymore, but I can still utilize those skills. And so really encouraging everybody to take that opportunity to get connected to an organization and, step up into leadership roles as the years go on. And even if we're in a virtual setting, the future is still virtual, even, and hopefully, the virus is gone, the laptops will not be gone, Zoom will not be gone. And so how can you take the opportunity to embrace it and, get ahead of the curve and, what can we do online virtually and taking those as hopeful opportunities and not just oh man, screen time again. So that's just my advice in general.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, and my advice for students is hopefully as things open up and continue opening up as things get safer, I would take advantage of a lot of the events that are posted at the MSc. Through the MSc is obviously how I found out about this job and another job I actually had on campus through the DDEEA. I worked with the McNair Scholarship Program, and I would have never found the opportunity if it weren't for the MSc. So the MSc is not only a great place to build community because you can meet a lot of interesting and cool people there. It's also a great way to again build your resume, build your experience, gain professional experience that's obviously going to be utilized and really looked after by companies and organizations once you leave this campus. So I guess my piece of advice, I'm sorry I cut out, so if that's not exactly the question, would just be utilizing all the resources the MSc had to offer. When I went to the writing center, I actually didn't plan to go on to the writing center that day, but I saw it and I was like, you know what? I'm writing this either I'm writing this thing for summer intensive Portuguese Institute or for class. Why not just go in? Why not just have someone help me out for just a quick second? What is it going to cost me? A better grade, a higher chance of acceptance, so just utilizing the resources when all around you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so thank you all for joining us today. I think we learned a lot about the Multicultural Student Center and just how students can get involved with you all. So yeah, this is Ask Bucky Unfiltered, and we post our webcasts every Sunday. Thank you so much, Maria and Christian, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.